You know, when we sit down to watch nature documentaries, we're usually sold this very specific, incredibly peaceful narrative of the animal kingdom. We picture these majestic lions, graceful gazelles, and the simple, clean logic of survival of the fittest. But the truth? The truth hidden in the shadows of our oceans, forests, and deserts is actually far stranger. Because the natural world isn't just about survival of the fittest, it's about the survival of the truly bizarre. Think about it for a second. What if outlasting your predators, or just finding your next meal, requires biology so extreme it looks like something straight out of a science fiction movie? What if survival actually requires becoming a monster? Well, let's dive into this, because the reality of evolutionary adaptation is going to completely shatter any illusions we have of a perfectly pristine animal kingdom. To understand just how extreme nature can get, we really need to look at the evidence. And our first case study is a parasite known as the tongue-eating louse. This little creature specifically targets fish, sneaking its way into the mouths of species like sea trout, snapper, and Atlantic croaker. And it doesn't just bite them, no. It executes this highly specialized, almost surgical parasitic takeover. Here is how it works. First, the louse severs the fish's actual tongue right from its mouth. Then, in a move that absolutely proves truth is stranger than fiction, it physically replaces the missing tongue with its own body. Once it's perfectly positioned in there, it just sits there, acting as a fully functional replacement tongue while quietly feeding on the fish's mucus or blood. It's a horrifying biological hijacking, for sure, but from an evolutionary standpoint, it's a flawlessly executed survival strategy. Part 1. Bizarre bodily defenses. Extreme measures for extreme threats. Let's contrast our rather boring human reflexes with the rest of the animal kingdom. When we're threatened, we rely on basic fight or flight, right? But take a look at the hairy frog. First off, it's an amphibian that doesn't actually have hair, but rather these thin strands of skin. And when this frog gets stressed or is under duress, it engages in a brutal, bone-breaking defense. It intentionally snaps its own toe bones, shoves those jagged, broken bones straight through its own skin, and uses them as makeshift claws. It literally weaponizes its own skeleton. If breaking your own bones isn't extreme enough for you, let's look at the Texas horned lizard. It has spikes and horns, sure, but its ultimate defense mechanism is way more theatrical. When it's threatened, it shoots a stream of blood directly out of its eyes. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of these extreme measures, because this lizard can release up to 1/3 of its total blood supply in a single squirt. This blood can reach several feet through the air and is laced with a nasty chemical specifically designed to drive predators away. But it's not just blood and bones. Sometimes survival comes down to bodily waste. 5 miles per hour. That is the exact speed of a projectile poop bomb fired by a penguin. To keep their nests clean without actually having to get up and leave, certain penguin species can expel their waste horizontally or in an arc. They generate incredible rectal pressure to shoot it up to 53 inches away. To put that into perspective for us, that would be equivalent to a human launching the contents of their bowels 10 feet through the air. Now, the ultimate sacrifice and regeneration defense mechanism absolutely belongs to the sea cucumber. Looking at it, just this squishy ocean blob, you might underestimate it. But when attacked, some species violently expel their own sticky, toxic internal organs straight out of their rectums. These toxic organs can entangle and actually kill an attacking predator. And the most incredible part of this whole thing? The sea cucumber survives this self-evisceration. It just swims off and regenerates the missing body parts later like it was no big deal. Part 2. Freaky feeding and mating, the dark arts of reproduction and sustenance. Talk about redefining biological commitment. When some species of anglerfish mate, they don't just partner up. They literally become one organism. The male physically fuses with a female. In many cases, their tissue remains joined forever. Their circulatory systems completely connect, and the male spends the rest of his life relying entirely on her for biological sustenance. And just to add to the strangeness of it all, a single female can actually fuse with multiple males at the exact same time. 10. That is the length in feet of a blue whale's penis. The sheer mechanics of reproduction for the largest animal on Earth are honestly staggering. A blue whale's phallus has a 1-foot diameter, and combined with testicles that weigh 150 pounds each, the entire apparatus weighs roughly 450 pounds. That is slightly more than the weight of the blue whale's massive heart. In fact, these appendages are so impossibly large and strange-looking that historically, sailors may have actually mistaken them for sea monsters. Let's move from the ocean back onto land, where sustenance and survival take on some wildly complex chemistry. Normal human sweat is just salty water meant to cool us down. But hippopotamuses secrete this thick, red fluid that looks exactly like they're sweating blood. They aren't, though. It's actually a highly sensitive, chemically unstable fluid that acts as a sort of super ointment. It moisturizes, it repels water, and it serves as a natural antibiotic against the harsh sun and dirty water. It is so unstable, in fact, that scientists couldn't even wipe it off with paper towels to study it without it breaking down. They had to carefully sponge off the animals just to get a sample. And speaking of highly specialized chemicals, we have to talk about the beaded lacewing larvae. These little insects hunt termites, and they've developed a rather, let's say, fragrant method of taking down their prey. They release a chemical called an alamone directly from their rear ends. That's right, this insect literally farts to paralyze its prey. A single toxic blast can take down multiple termites at once, serving up a very stinky but highly successful buffet. Part 3. Hidden Biological Superpowers, the Unseen Architecture of Survival. A lot of animals change their coats for the winter, sure. But reindeer undergo a seasonal wardrobe change that kind of defies belief. Their eyes physically change color. In the summer, their eyes are a golden brown, but in the winter, they shift to a vibrant glowing blue. This is due to a structure called the tapetum lucidum. It's actually the exact same layer that makes a cat's eyes glow when they're caught in a flashlight. By changing color, the reindeer's eyes maximize whatever little light exists in the perpetual twilight of the freezing Arctic winter. And then we have the naked mole rat. These wrinkly, incredibly strange-looking rodents live entirely underground, and they manipulate their dark environment with unparalleled dental dexterity. They can move their massive front buck teeth entirely independently of one another. By spreading them apart and pulling them back together, they use their teeth exactly like a pair of chopsticks. This allows them to eat, dig through hard soil, and even fight off rivals with total surgical precision. Superpowers are hiding everywhere if you just know where to look. Let's rapid fire through a few more. Houseflies? They don't taste with their mouths at all. Their taste buds are on their feet, which are 10 million times more sensitive than a human tongue. Goats? They aren't just bleeding randomly. They actually develop distinct regional accents based on the specific social groups they're raised in. And the Benzie dog? It doesn't bark, it yodels. A quirk scientists believe is due to a physically shallower laryngeal ventricle in their throats. Even the most familiar-seeming animals harbor deeply bizarre secrets. Part 4. The Climate Connection, when bizarre biology meets a changing world. So, we've marveled at these evolutionary wonders. But what happens when these ancient, highly specialized biological traits collide head-on with modern, rapid climate shifts? Well, let that number sink in for a second. 90,000. That is the number of blood-sucking ticks that a single adult moose can carry embedded in its skin at one time. The infestation gets so maddening that the moose will literally rub their own fur off just trying to escape the torment. And here's the really crucial point. Our changing ecology is essentially weaponizing this parasite. Historically, deep freezes would kill off massive portions of the tick populations, but climate change is causing consistently warmer winters. This environmental shift is making these tick infestations so incredibly severe now that while a massive adult moose might barely survive the blood loss, their young calves simply cannot, and they often die. It is a tragic intersection of biology and our changing climate. But the climate connection actually goes both ways. Sometimes the animals themselves are driving the metrics. Termites are staggeringly abundant. There are an estimated 27 quadrillion of them roaming the earth right now. And because of their highly specialized wood-digesting diets, they are incredibly gassy. Termites alone produce up to 3% of all global methane emissions. Yet nature has these built-in ecological balances. While these 27 quadrillion insects are venting massive amounts of greenhouse gases, their homes are actually working to counteract it. Nearly half of the methane the termites produce is broken down and filtered by specialized bacteria living inside the termite mounds and the surrounding soil, before it ever even reaches the atmosphere. It's an ancient natural filtration system built right into their architecture. And that brings us to the core thesis of this explainer. From frogs breaking their own bones to defend themselves, to hippos sweating chemical sunscreen, to insects filtering greenhouse gases through their living cities, none of this is a mistake. Every single bizarre trait we've looked at today serves a precise architectural purpose in the natural world. Evolution doesn't care about what looks normal. It only cares about what works. But the rules of the game are changing faster than ever before. We've seen how perfectly these creatures have adapted over millions of years. So I want to leave you with this thought. As our climate rapidly and forcefully alters the very environments these animals rely on, which of these extreme biological strategies will be flexible enough to adapt? And which of nature's weirdest survivors are about to be permanently left behind? Thank you so much for exploring with me today. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.